Welcome to the People and Projects Podcast, where you'll find interviews and insights to help you deliver projects and lead teams. You can find us on the web at peopleandprojectspodcast.com. Hi, this is Andy Kaufman, President of the Institute for Leadership Excellence and Development Incorporated. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the People and Projects Podcast. I'm recording this on the road this week in Austin, Texas. And I got to tell you, it's been an interesting time in the Kaufman household. Last week, we received a 6-month-old foster child into the family, and he's an amazingly cute little guy. But I have to say that now that our children are 17 and 14 and 11, it's been pretty interesting to adjust to having an infant in the home again. You know, this little guy, he showed up with a case of croup, so we've had some quality time together in the wee hours of the night. And I've been reminded how reduced sleep takes a toll on performance during the day. So why do I bring all this up? Most everyone I run into these days is feeling some sort of pressure. Between the economy and a plate full of commitments, there's an endless number of things we can worry about if we're so inclined. You know, most business leaders, they can only take so much pressure before their performance slides. Yet others seem to deliver great successes when times get toughest. So how do they do it? In this episode, I talk with Justin Menkes, author of Better Under Pressure, How Great Leaders Bring Out the Best in Themselves and Others. So let's learn together from Justin as we talk about leading under pressure.
We're joined today by Justin Menkes. Justin is an acclaimed author and a leading expert in the field of C-suite talent evaluation. His research led him to the discovery of executive intelligence and the creation of a methodology to measure it. Justin has received international recognition for his expertise authoring the Wall Street Journal bestseller Executive Intelligence, as well as articles for Chief Executive Magazine, Directorship Magazine, and Harvard Business Review. Today we're talking with Justin about his latest book, Better Under Pressure, published by Harvard Business School Press. Justin, thank you for joining us for the People and Projects Podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
You know, unquestionably, these are stressful times to be a leader, you know, whether at the top of an organization, you know, where you focus primarily, or down the ladder. In what ways is it more stressful to lead today, Justin, than ever? And in what ways has it always been stressful?
That's a good opening question. It's so funny that you finished the question with, in what ways has it always been stressful? Because one of the concepts, I got my doctorate under Peter Drucker, and one of the things he used to hammer away at is that what defines a great leader has never changed, and that is the ability to get the best out of your people, to not focus on what they do poorly, but to focus on what they do well and help them really just be as good as they can be. And then that's always defined great leadership, which is to take the ordinary and help them do the extraordinary. So, it really, in some ways, leadership and positions of authority have always had a considerable amount of stress to them. But obviously, that level has elevated considerably in virtually every conceivable way, and visually and internally. Those all the reasons are self-explanatory. I would say, what are the causes? The main causes are the speed and technology have increased change and the pace of change. So human beings are confronting flux at a rate that they'd never confronted before, and the intertwined nature of the global markets means that there are more people playing in your space or overlapping in your space or looking to compete and take away your space than ever before. So what's happening is this combination of factors where technology makes things go faster, and the sort of smallization, to make up a word, of the world has brought more people together. So you just have more variables in the system, and more variables means more volatility because there's just more things that can go wrong.
Yeah, makes sense. Although I get a kick out of it sometimes when I'll talk to some older relatives. In fact, I've got one. I think he's 91. He tells me stories of World War II. And whenever I talk about how stressful things are now, he's like, well, let me tell you about it.
I like that story because it's actually a great technique that some of the better leaders use that your listeners might want to take on. There's a guy named Dave O'Reilly at Chevron, and he deals with, and any sort of large energy company deals with projects and risk-taking that are almost unfathomable for people to conceive. These projects are, from beginning to end, 10 to 15-year-long projects that require investments larger than the GDP of the vast majority of countries, and they involve not just the technological challenges, life and death struggles, and actual mortality rates, but then also politics, politicians, geopolitics. So the complexity, the risk, the lives at stake, the capital at stake is huge, and so people at oil companies can get rather stressed, and Dave uses the exact same analogy that your grandfather used, but quite effectively, it is quite effective to remind people that while today things may feel as if they are challenging, you can always look to times in history that they were more challenging, and this too shall, we shall survive. That is absolutely the case. That things are there's as much opportunity for upside and for growth as there's ever been, and so.
Yeah, you have a number of good Dave stories in there. I remember a quote, something along the lines of, "This is not for the faint of heart," right? And but so there is a question of, do you even want to lead? But what I'm thinking more in the context of the better under pressure is, you can probably think of many people, just off the top of your head, they're just great at handling stress. I can think of some, and we can both think of people that aren't very good at that, it would seem. So it seems a bit of this nature versus nurture thing. So ask differently here. Can resilience be something that's learned, would you say?
I think resiliency is, so like anything, genetics play a role in how we interact with the environment we're put in and make us more vulnerable or less vulnerable to certain reactions. But in terms of resiliency and dealing with stress, it is almost absolutely learned from the beginning. So it is, some of us have childhoods and parents that dealt with who we were as people in ways and circumstances that allowed us to absorb lessons that made us either good or bad at dealing with stress. So when you meet them as adults, you're seeing a manifestation of a very long history and a very well-laid track of experiences that make people either panic or get better when they feel a higher heart rate and more adrenaline in their system, which is merely their brain saying this is important and we need to focus on this. And some people are able to and some people don't. But the answer to your question is it's learned. And the people that don't do it well in leadership positions are actually people that are victims of not having good leaders above them that have taught them, put them in positions for them to master the experience of stress.
We've gotten advice as parents that it's too easy to bubble wrap kids these days, and then that actually hurts them in the future because they haven't gone through the difficulties. And so that comes to mind even from a parenting of helping them be more resilient in the future. But one of the best guys, I have to say, Justin, on my staff years ago, he was a former Vietnam vet. And he just, when I'd be freaking out over something, he'd be like, "Andy, no one's getting pulled around behind the building and getting shot. Settle down."
And it's I think that it's great to actually use that analogy because the thing about human beings is that as a species too is that and it may surprise people. I was once a reporter asked me, he said, it sounds like a sort of a dark experience talking about stress, and that when people see it, you have these 24-hour news cycles. So I was with last week a couple of CEOs. I was with Fred Smith from FedEx and a couple of CEOs in Cleveland that are in industrial companies that people wouldn't actually know widely. But They were talking about how the influence of internet and immediacy of information has affected actually the ability to run a business and run a team. And your listeners probably experience this too, which is that when they run a team, this team actually can and has access to instant information and the ability to spread what's happening or hear what's happening in the company, at a far more detail, with far more immediacy than anyone had ever experienced in the past. And it actually affects how you're able to lead a team, because it can make people so reactive and short-term. So you have to actually manage that. So you actually have to sort of take on this sort of sense of, this too shall pass, and it's just a moment, and feelings, even though feelings, when we experience them in the moment, the intensity of them tells our brain that they're going to last forever. It's more important than ever for your team to learn that a feeling is just that. It's a momentary reaction that will pass. And so if they feel a moment of panic, that's all it is a moment. That 5 minutes from now will be very different from now, even though internally, inside, it feels like what's happening will go on forever.
Yeah, I think it's when I was talking to Tony Schwartz. He said it takes 90 seconds for the limbic system to flush. So if you're still angry at somebody 90 seconds later, you're choosing to. Or whatever. So sometimes,
it's